10 years. I gave them a decade of my life, my loyalty, my best ideas. I thought I was part of the family, part of the foundation. And then, one Tuesday afternoon, with a sterile 5-minute HR call, they decided I was expendable. They treated my dedication like a line item to be cut. That day, the ground fell away. But what they didn't realize, what corporate never seems to understand, is that when you discard someone with that much institutional knowledge, that much fire left in them, you're not just letting an employee go. You're creating your fiercest competitor. My name is Evelyn Reed, and this is the story of how I came back. Hello. Welcome to Hurt Stories. My story doesn't start with the firing. It starts with the building. 10 years earlier, I walked into Sterling Dynamics, a mid-sized logistics software firm, hungry for stability. I was in my mid-40s then, a single mother with a mortgage and a college-bound daughter. Stability wasn't just a desire, it was a primal need. Sterling offered that. The work wasn't glamorous. Client management, process optimization, bridging the gap between the developers and the people actually using the software. But I was good at it. I built relationships. I learned the cracks in our own system and how to patch them before clients noticed. I knew which clients loved a detailed 8 a.m. call and which would rather get a 2-line email at 4 p.m. I knew the secret handshake with the IT guys to get a server rebooted fast. This knowledge, this quiet, intricate web of how things actually worked, that was my value. And for years, they valued it. I believed in loyalty. It was an old-fashioned concept, even then. My father worked for the same company for 38 years and got a gold watch. I wasn't expecting a gold watch, but I did expect respect. I expected that my contributions, my consistent over-delivery, my willingness to stay late before a major launch or come in on a Saturday to soothe a panicked client, would be recognized as more than just meeting expectations on an annual review. I mentored the new kids. I was the one who organized the retirement cards, the baby showers. I was the office heart, or so I thought. The signs, of course, are only visible in the rearview mirror. The new CEO, a young man from a venture capital background, Brandon Cole. Fresh perspective, they said. Aggressive growth. The language started to shift. We were no longer a team. We were human capital. Our clients weren't partnerships. They were revenue streams. My detailed, relationship-based reports were suddenly too anecdotal. He wanted data, dashboards, metrics that could be boiled down to a single PowerPoint slide for the board. I tried to adapt. I learned the new software. I pumped out the dashboards, but I always included a page at the end, what I called the human context. Why the McAllister account satisfaction score dipped last quarter. Their lead contact was on maternity leave, and her replacement was overwhelmed. Why the Jenkins deal was taking so long to close. The founder's wife was ill, and he was focusing on family. This context, to me, was the business. To the new regime, it was noise. The isolation began slowly. I was excluded from strategic meetings I'd been part of for years. My new boss, a 30-year-old former consultant who reported directly to Brandon, would smile tightly and say, "We just need the hard numbers, Evelyn. Let the leadership worry about the narrative." Leadership. As if I hadn't been leading client relationships since before he got his MBA. The culture curdled. The Friday happy hours stopped. There was a new, cold efficiency. People started looking over their shoulders. And then, the whispers of streamlining began. The day itself was bizarrely ordinary. It was a Tuesday in October. I'd brought a turkey sandwich from home. I was working on a quarterly review for our oldest client, Frampton Industries. I'd just gotten off a lovely call with old man Frampton himself, who'd asked about my daughter by name. At 2:17 p.m., a calendar invite popped up from HR. 15-minute check-in. No context. My stomach, that ancient, wise organ, dropped. But my brain, ever the loyal employee, concocted excuses. Maybe it was about the new healthcare forms. Maybe it was a random diversity and inclusion briefing. I clicked the Zoom link. There was Sandra from HR, her face a mask of professional sympathy. And my boss, that 30-year-old wunderkind looking at a point just above his webcam. No small talk. Sandra cleared her throat. Evelyn, thank you for joining. This is a difficult conversation. Due to a strategic realignment of the company's goals and a restructuring of the client management vertical, your position has been made redundant. The words hung in the digital air. Made redundant. What a vile, passive-aggressive phrase. I wasn't laid off, let go, or even fired. I was made redundant, as if the value I created had been magically erased by a PowerPoint deck. I felt a hot flush, then an icy cold. I heard my own voice, strangely calm, ask, I see. Can you clarify the strategic realignment? My boss jumped in, reciting what sounded like a press release. We're pivoting to a more digitally native, scalable customer success model, Evelyn. The emphasis is on AI-driven touchpoints and tiered service packages. The deep, high-touch model is being sunsetted. The high-touch model, that was me. I was the high-touch model. They were sunsetting me. The rest was a blur of legalese. Severance package, 4 weeks of pay for 10 years of work. Cobra information, return of company property. My laptop, my keycard. They asked if I had any questions. I had a million, but they all stuck in my throat, a tangled knot of betrayal and sheer disbelief. All I could manage was, who will handle the Frampton transition? Their integration is custom, and the renewal is in 3 weeks. A pause. My boss said, that will be handled by the new customer success platform and the junior team. We have it under control. I didn't have it under control. Old man Frampton hated the automated platform. He told me so. But that was no longer my problem. In 15 minutes, I was severed. A decade of institutional memory, of trust built with clients, of quiet crisis management deleted. I sat in my home office, in the same chair I'd worked from for 3 years since the pandemic, staring at the blank screen. The silence was deafening. Then the first wave hit. Not anger, but a profound, seismic shame. What had I done wrong? Why was I good enough? How could I be so easily replaced? The weeks that followed were a fog of disorientation. The ritual of work was gone. I'd wake up at 6:30 a.m., panicked, then remember I had nowhere to go. I applied for jobs, my spirit wilting as I pasted my experience into soulless online forms, knowing I was competing with people half my age who would cost half as much. The few interviews I got were depressing. You have a fantastic background, Evelyn, but we're really looking for someone more digitally agile. A euphemism. I was a relic. My daughter, bless her, was my rock. She flew home one weekend, took one look at me staring listlessly at the garden and said, Mom, they didn't deserve you, but you're not done. She's fierce, that one, but the fire was out. The turning point was small, almost silly. About 6 weeks after the Tuesday, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. It was Dave from Frampton Industries. Not old man Frampton, but his operations manager, a no-nonsense guy I'd worked with for 8 years. Evelyn, Dave, listen, I heard what happened. It's a damn shame. His voice was gruff, genuine. I'm calling because this new system is a disaster. The automated tickets go into a black hole. The kid they assigned us doesn't know our legacy setup from a hole in the ground. Our weekly data sync failed, and no one noticed until our warehouse was shipping the wrong items. We're losing money and patience. I felt a familiar, professional urge to troubleshoot. Dave, you need to escalate to Tier 3 support. Reference case file FD2019045. That's the one about the legacy API connector. They have a manual override. A long sigh on the other end. I did. The Tier 3 guy asked me what an API was. Evelyn, we're jumping ship. Our renewal is next week and we're not signing. I'm calling because old man Frampton wanted me to ask you if you were consulting. If you knew anyone, anyone who could handle a mess like us. Someone who gets that business isn't just ones and zeros. The question hung in the air. Consulting. It had never occurred to me. I was an employee, not an entrepreneur. But in that moment, the shame began to melt, replaced by a slow, burning coal of anger. They didn't have it under control. They were losing one of their oldest, most loyal clients because they valued digitally native over competent. They'd thrown the baby out with the bathwater, and the baby was now calling me. I took a deep breath. Dave, let me make a few calls. I'll get back to you by end of day. I hadn't made any calls. I had no one to call, but I had just committed to figuring it out. That night I couldn't sleep. But for the first time in months, it wasn't from anxiety. It was from a frantic, electric energy. I got up, made a pot of coffee, and opened a blank document. I titled it, What They Threw Away. I started listing everything I knew, everything Sterling had just deemed redundant. The intricate, undocumented workflows for 15 of their major clients. The personality maps of every key decision-maker at those clients. The secret sauce, workarounds for their own buggy software that the dev team never officially fixed. The exact pain points in the industries they served, not from market reports, but from thousands of hours of conversation. The trust, the simple human trust I had built. I was holding a blueprint for a competing business. Not a giant, VC-funded monstrosity, but a lean, bespoke, high-touch consultancy for clients who were tired of being revenue streams and wanted to be partners again. The next morning, I called Dave back. My voice only shook a little. Dave, I am consulting now. I can help Frampton. I'll need to understand your current pain points in detail, and I'll draft a service-level agreement. My rate will be... I threw out a number that felt astronomical to me, a salaried employee for so long. Dave didn't even blink. Sounds fair. Send over the paperwork. I had my first client. Now I needed a business. A name, a logo, a bank account, a legal structure. I spent days in a whirlwind of discovery. I called my accountant. I found a small business lawyer through a friend. I decided on an LLC, Reed Solutions. Simple, personal, mine. The most important call was to Martin. Martin was the lead software architect at Sterling for 7 of my 10 years. A brilliant, quiet man in his 50s who had been restructured, out 6 months before I was. We'd always respected each other. I called him, and over a hesitant coffee, I laid out my mad plan. They think it's all about the software, Martin. But we know it's about the bridge between the software and the human beings who use it. I can build the client side. I know their hearts and minds. But I need someone who can handle the technical architecture, who can maybe even build us a better, simpler dashboard or integration tool than Sterling's bloated system. Someone the clients can trust. Martin stirred his coffee for a long time. They offered me 6 months of severance if I signed a non-compete, he said quietly. I didn't sign it. My lawyer said it was overly broad, unenforceable. I've been gardening for 6 months, Evelyn. I'm bored out of my mind. A slow smile spread across his face. That was the moment Reed Solutions became more than a one-woman consultancy. We became a partnership. We had our strategist and our builder. We had our insider knowledge. And we had our first burning client. We didn't launch with fanfare. We launched with whispers. Martin and I made a list of every Sterling client I had personally worked with, and a few key former colleagues who we knew were unhappy or had been let go. Our approach was surgical, personal, and based entirely on the deep knowledge we possessed. I didn't send marketing blasts. I sent personal emails. To the client who hated automated systems, I remember your preference for direct, detailed communication. I'm now offering that independently. To the client struggling with Sterling's new update, the glitch in the inventory module you always hated, we've built a standalone patch for that. To the former colleague, We're building something where experience is the asset, not a liability. Want to talk? The value proposition wasn't cheaper. It was better, smarter, and human. We weren't selling software. We were selling sanity. We were selling the deep, contextual understanding that Sterling had voluntarily amputated. And for clients drowning in the faceless, automated customer success hellscape that Brandon had implemented, it was a lifeline. One by one, the clients came. Not all of them, but enough. Frampton Industries became our anchor, our case study. We fixed their sink issue in a day. We built Martin's elegant, simple dashboard that gave them the 3 pieces of data they actually needed, not 50 they didn't. We charged a premium, and they paid it gladly because we were saving them 10 times that in operational headaches. Within 9 months, we had 10 mid-sized clients, all former Sterling clients. We hired 2 more former Sterling employees, a support specialist who was a wizard with data and a sales lead who was tired of the corporate cynicism. We were a tiny, potent team, a ghost of Sterling's former, better self, now haunting them from the outside. The inevitable collision happened at an industry conference about 18 months after my firing. I was there with Martin, manning a small, elegant booth for Reed Solutions. We weren't trying to be flashy. Our presence was a statement in itself. I saw him from across the hall. Brandon Cole, Sterling's CEO, holding court near a giant, flashing display. He looked the same, polished, confident. Then his eyes scanned the room and landed on our booth. I saw the recognition, then the confusion, then the cold calculation flash across his face. He excused himself from his group and walked over, a tight smile plastered on. "Evelyn Martin, a surprise to see you here." His tone was light, but there was steel underneath. "Brandon," I said, my voice calm, "it's a good conference for making connections." He glanced at our logo, our client list, discreetly displayed on a monitor. Reed Solutions. I've heard the name. Poaching a few old clients with discount rates, I assume. The legacy model can be appealing for a while. I didn't blink. No discounts, Brandon. We charge a 30% premium on Sterling's old enterprise rate. We're not selling legacy. We're selling expertise and resolution. Something we found was in increasingly short supply. I saw a muscle in his jaw twitch. In fact, we just signed Grayson Medical. They told us the new AI chat system couldn't understand their compliance needs. Grayson was a client he'd personally promised to retain. His smile vanished. The veneer of corporate pleasantry evaporated. "You know, Evelyn, there are legalities, non-disclosures, intellectual property." Martin spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. "All our work is original, Brandon, built from the ground up. The client knowledge we use is in our heads. The problems we solve are the ones your new system creates. That's not IP theft. That's just good business." He looked at us, these 2 people in their late 50s he'd cast aside, now standing as his legitimate competitors, calmly taking the very clients he was failing. For a second, I saw not anger, but a flicker of something else, the dawning realization that he'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. He'd confused corporate restructuring with actual intelligence. He'd traded a deep, strategic asset for a superficial, trendy one. "This isn't over," he said, the words hollow. "For you," I replied, meeting his gaze evenly. "I suspect it's just beginning. Have a good conference, Brandon." He turned and walked away. In that moment, any last shred of shame or self-doubt I'd carried evaporated. I was no longer a victim of his restructuring. I was the architect of my own, and I had built something stronger. This journey taught me more in 2 years than in the previous 30. It wasn't just about business. It was about the fundamental misconceptions of our modern corporate world. First, the cult of the new. We've decided that new equals better. New technology, new models, new young faces. We dismiss depth, history, and context as legacy thinking to be discarded. Sterling didn't fire me, they fired context. They fired the living, breathing memory of the company. And any organization that does that is committing self-sabotage. It's cutting out its own hippocampus. Second, the fallacy of disposable loyalty. Loyalty is not a one-way street from employee to corporation. Loyalty is a covenant. When a company breaks that covenant, as Sterling did, it severs a psychic bond. It transforms loyalists into informed skeptics and potentially into formidable adversaries. They gave me the one thing a competitor most needs: intimate knowledge of the enemy's weaknesses. Third, the power of the second act. Society tells women, especially women of a certain age, that our prime is behind us. That being let go is the beginning of the end. It is a lie. My firing was not an ending. It was an unnatural, painful birth. The anger, the grief, the knowledge, that was my fuel. My 50s became the most creative, powerful, and financially rewarding period of my life. I am no longer building someone else's dream on a shaky foundation. I am sitting in the house I built, stone by stone, with my own hands and my own terms. Fourth, the true meaning of competition. We didn't beat Sterling by outspending them or outmuscling them. We beat them by outcaring them. We listened when they sent automated surveys. We remembered when their system forgot. We solved while their ticket was still languishing in a queue. In a world desperate for humanity, kindness and competence are the ultimate competitive edge. Sterling Dynamics is still around. They're smaller, leaner. They pivoted again, I hear. Brandon Cole left for new opportunities last year. The stock price never recovered. I don't take pleasure in their struggle, that's not the point. The point is validation, not of my revenge, but of my core belief. Business is, and always will be, a human endeavor. Reed Solutions is thriving. We're 20 people now, mostly seasoned professionals who were tired of being treated like outdated machinery. We have no interest in being a unicorn. We're a workhorse. Profitable, sustainable, and deeply connected to our clients. The greatest victory isn't the revenue, though that's nice. It's the culture we built. We have flexible hours. We respect school plays and doctor's appointments. We have no mandatory fun, just genuine respect. When someone on our team has a crisis, we circle the wagons. We've proven you can run a fiercely competitive business without sacrificing human decency. Sometimes, I think about writing a letter to my former self, sitting shell-shocked in that home office on that Tuesday afternoon. I would tell her, "The pain you feel is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. They have confused your loyalty for weakness. They have mistaken your depth for obsolescence. This ending is a gift so poorly wrapped you cannot yet imagine the contents. You will cry, you will rage, you will doubt every skill you possess. Then you will get up. You will use the very knowledge they discarded as the foundation for your empire. You will find your people. You will build a table where you decide the seats, and you will invite others who have been discarded to sit at it. The world tells you your story is winding down. They are wrong. It is entering its most powerful chapter. You are not being put out to pasture. You are being unleashed. Now go, build." So, to anyone out there who has been made to feel redundant, who has been traded for a trend or a line on a spreadsheet, your value is not determined by a corporate algorithm. Your experience is not a liability. It is your proprietary technology. Your network is your net worth. And your second act can be so much more magnificent than your first, because this time, you're writing the script. They fired me after 10 years of loyalty. And in doing so, they gave me the one thing I needed to become their most formidable competition: my freedom and the fire to use it. Thank you for listening. If you want to hear more story like this, please like the video and subscribe the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified.